Hello, this video will be a little longer than usual and will demonstrate how easy it is to configure objects and workflows in Xeelo. For the demonstration purposes, we'll use a basic case using one company named Test Ltd, one object type named Transaction Data, and one object named Request. Further, we will configure a simple one-level approval workflow utilizing just three roles: Requester, Approver 1, and Approver 2. And for statuses: saved, submitted, approved, and cancelled. Workflow will start from initial step and pass one approval level to reach either step approved or cancelled, which are our final states. Let's kick off. We start our configuration with defining company where our object type and object will be sitting. We define the name, order, and we can do color and icon. In the same way, we will do the object type, transaction data. Once done, we'll proceed to object and configure basics for the request object. Starting again with the general like name, color, icon, and saving and reopening. Now we'll continue with building the form with the object. We can create tabs, sections, and lines. Lines are represented by different types of fields. In our case, to define the structure, we'll use the text box first and consequently modify them. Let's insert field request ID, request type, and request description. As we are ready with the initial structure of the object request, we will jump now to the section workflows and will define the roles we need for our workflow. Requester initial role to create the request. Important here it is to tick in the requester box to make sure that this role is recognized as initial role in the workflow. Continue with Approver 1 and Approver 2, the roles with approval authority we require for our workflow. After role definition, we have to ensure we specify the statuses for the workflow based on the case presented at the beginning of the video: saved, submitted, approved, and cancelled. With statuses, we need to specify order for display, tag new, and tag overdue, defining the duration in hours for particular tag. Important is to tick in box completed for every final workflow step and cancelled for cancelled one. Once the roles and statuses are defined, we proceed to configuration of the workflow itself, starting with workflow name and definition of initial workflow step. In our case, we start at requester and status saved. In Xeelo, we use the workflow builder to configure the workflow in a user-friendly manner. From requester saved, we will move to workflow using action submit to Approver 1 status submitted by defining the action step name and next step role and status. Same we'll define to move to Approver 2 submitted. Next step will be triggered by action approve and will be directed to the final state requester approved. We need to do this from Approver 1 as well as from Approver 2. Our happy path, the positive workflow, is drafted. Let's continue with negative path, i.e. Approver 1 and 2 will cancel the request. Action cancel goes to requester cancelled. Now our entire workflow is drafted. At the moment of workflow readiness, we should remember to create template, i.e. the way how the object will behave, and assign our newly created workflow to this template. We open the object again and go directly to the tab Templates and add the new template. We name the template Default. Select the workflow and tick in the tick box is default and save. Once we have template, we can configure the behavior of the object lines and create so-called object template lines. In our object, we have created a line called request ID and we shall configure this as auto number, i.e. auto-generated sequential number with specified format. To define this, we need first to set up the auto number. Name the auto number, specify the format, and set the next number. Done. For the object field request type, we should have available reference list with values request type 1 and request type 2 to be selected via combo box. To configure this, we will jump to reference and name the reference list and further specify the value and name, i.e. 1 request type 1 and 2 request type 2. And now back to object, lines, request ID, and link the created auto number to this line. Next, request type, change the line type into combo box and select reference, the newly created reference list. Further to this, we define this field as mandatory, i.e. needs to always be filled. After template line definitions, let's define what we will see on the grid. We have just 3 fields, therefore we can put them all on the grid to be visible. Now we have the config of the object and it would be appropriate to verify the config on the user side. To do that, we would first need to set up an access for the user in order to get into the user environment. This is done in user management section. We jump to user and populate the name, login and email and save it. Next, we set up a user access, i.e. assign roles to the user. After we define special access, i.e. access to specific modules. Last but not least, we do reset the password in order to get a system-generated password to our inbox. Now we can log in using the received password. Login was successful and we are in. Let's check what would the user see. Let's try to create a new request. The form opens and we can see 3 fields which we configured. Request ID with mask of the auto number format, request type, combo with 2 values, and the request description as a free text field. Now we'll close it and go back to admin. We still need to finalize the drafted workflow by conditioning the path driving the request either to approver 1 or to approver 2. We said it should be driven by the request type. So let's do the conditions on the action step level. In workflow diagram, click the action step, submit, and add the condition. Link it to appropriate object line, select condition type, and set the parameter. In our case, request type equals to 1. Next, second submit leading to approver 2, same thing. Set the condition, just the parameter to be set to 2. Now the workflow is fully configured and the entire case configuration is finished. So last thing we do is the verification in the user interface. Let's create a request and select the request type 1, which according to the config is expected to be routed to approver 1. We submit the request, and as we have the role of approver, we would be able to approve as well, but prior to approval, we shall check if the workflow was really routed to the correct approver. Let's check the user view of the workflow diagram, and we can see that indeed now it is with approver 1. That's great. We approve and finalize the first request and will create another one to test the routing to approver 2 by selecting the request type 2. Again, the same steps, including the check of the workflow diagram. And success here as well. This one is correctly routed to approver 2. Perfect. Okay, this was our quick and straightforward demonstration of easy config of objects and workflows in Xeelo. Let's summarize. At the beginning, we had just one task, our case description and empty platform. And this is what we did to deliver the configured solution. We created a company, defined the object type, configured object, specified roles, specified statuses, configured workflow, set the auto number, created the reference list, and created user account and granted access. And in Xeelo, it all worked in less than 9 minutes.